Hey, Nathan, do you know what they call a quarter pounder in France?
Hamburger.
Now dig on this.
Where? Bonjour.
We welcome to Classic Movie Banter. You know that podcast where me, that dude, Brenton, and that other Frenchman over there, Nathan,
Where?
we talk about films that are 20 years or older. 20 years.
Fuck, how old is this movie? I'll edit this out. What's the actual... 1963. We're in 2020. Fuck, what year is it? I gotta do this gag, listeners. Fuck, what is it?
It's 30,
73, 83, 93.
57 years, right?
57 years, alright.
Yeah.
57 years!
Whoa, Nathan, it's like you knew that off the top of your head.
I did.
And we tell you, our lovely, lovely listeners, if these films are still worth watching today, and more importantly, if they're worth chucking on your projector on a Thursday night with your mates. Have a few drinks maybe, or not. Maybe have a few Panthers.
Poor Blake Edwards, he's probably rolling in his grave, the idea of us watching this on like our iPhones. He's like, this was made for a screen. Even though he's American, but I'll make him French for this.
I reckon, because obviously this episode of Classic Movie Banter, which is our 130th, whoa.
You're not Canadian.
It was released in 2020, so maybe sometime in the future, a few decades from now, people are sitting there with their like holographic projections just being like, MacBook, what the fuck are these boys talking about? You know what I mean?
What
like,
is
I'm
a
here to
MacBook?
watch this on... What is a MacBook? Yeah, and they're like, they're fucking like on some streaming service and it streams the hologram to them.
Here's the thing, that will never be a thing. In the Hunger Games, how they have their like stupid hologram TVs?
Yeah.
That's what they thought this was going in, like...
Maybe it'll be like more like a VR thing.
It's not.
You know,
it's going to
maybe
be glasses. Everyone's going to wear fucking glasses and your whole bloody vision.
people put on their headsets, they put on their fucking, Harry Potter spectacles and they go to Hogwarts or whatever. That's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, man. What are we doing in 2020? Get us out of here.
I want to know what we're doing in the future a few decades from now when everyone's in VR land.
I really hope that's what they call that console, VR land. Just like, off we go.
It sounds like the demo for it, you know what I mean? You know how like Wii had like Wii Sports, you know what I mean? And there's always like a demo disc or something that comes with like these new systems or whatever, and it's like VR land, come to VR land, and there's like all these like kooky characters on the front of it. It'd be like Adventure Time or something like that, you know what I mean? Where there's like, like there's just normal people walking around, but it's just fucked. Like everything's just like weirdly animated, made to look like really enticing, but it's just kind of eerie at the same time. It doesn't really know what tone it wants to be. It's just VR land, you know what I mean? But Nathan, we're not here to talk about that.
No, we're
today.
really not. We're here to talk about... Why is this on the list, actually? Did we mention this in a previous episode, the original Pink Panther? I can't even remember. Why are we here? What are we doing this for?
Guys, we're reviewing Pink Panther. No, not the Steve Martin movie, you fucks. We're here to talk about the original 1963 American comedy film, directed by Blake Edwards. Now, Nathan, do you know what Blake Edwards also directed?
A lot of the Pink Panther films.
Clue for Nathan. We've reviewed one of his films before.
Dude, that's like a fucking huge catalogue. I don't know. Babe 1.
No, I can tell you right now, it was not Babe 1, and it was not The Last Temptation of Christ. It was, in fact, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, there we go. All right. Cool. Great. Pitch me this movie.
Thanks, Nathan. I will.
Can you pitch me the movie?
Pink Panther. No, it doesn't involve a literal Pink Panther, even though the title credits would want you to believe that. No, we're here to talk about the Pink Panther diamond, which is this priceless diamond that has like a little thing on it that makes it, original, and that
it's got a little bit of a tramp stamp at the back,
Basically, like it's got like a little smidgeny thing on the inside of that diamond that in the light looks like a panther. I think that's like leaping or something, you know what I mean? So that's why it's called the Pink Panther. Anyway, there's this fucking diamond, and it's gone missing. It's owned by Princess Darla from what country is she from? I'm not sure, for reasons we'll get into. But basically, the diamond goes missing for various political reasons, you know what I mean? Like, the people of that country are like, no, the Pink Panther's ours. And she's like, but my dad gave it to me. And they're like, fuck you, we don't care, it's ours. And then at the same time, there's this French idiot called...
Local French idiot. Here we go.
There's this French guy called Peter Sellers, and he's inspecting what could have possibly happened to the Pink Panther. His travels are also causing him to hunt down this notorious jewel thief known as the Phantom, who is at large, so they say.
Is that like the comic character, the Phantom?
No. Not that guy. You know, otherwise this would be called the Purple Phantom. I don't know. The Purple Phantom and the Pink Panther. Just stop with the P's and the colours.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Calm down, mate.
Just let me finish the pitch. Basically, this Frenchman, he's with his wife, you know, and they're in some cottage in the Italian Alps looking for this bloody jewel and who could potentially steal it. And it doesn't really actually focus on the French guy all that much, actually, but he is kind of the main character, I guess. Anyway, that's the Pink Panther. Hilarity ensues.
All right. Let's imagine I'm a studio executive in the 60s and I've heard that.
To be fair to me, that was pretty terrible. But to be fair to me, I think with my pitches, I like to reflect the tone of the movie, you know what I mean? And so for me, that was just kind of all over the place. Like, there was no consistency. It was just fucking everywhere.
Well, that would insinuate that we reviewed a lot of inconsistent movies then.
Or maybe that this movie is just inconsistent. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so cool. All right. So this French fucker's running about in the Alps trying to find a diamond. All right. So he's doing that. Is there anything else, or is that the whole movie?
I don't want to get into it personally. Right. That's why I omitted that from my pitch.
All right. What type of movie is this? Is this a serious crime drama, Brenton, of him trying to find this diamond?
No, it is a comedy. Hence why I said hilarity ensues. We learn about the thieves as well. We learn about the other perspective. We learn about what they're after and how they try to con people into gaining their wealth and their jewels and whatever. And people you might not think would be involved are.
Mate, I'm hooked like a 5-year-old has gone fishing for the first time and they've completely missed the fish. I'm that hooked.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. When they whip it back to try and cast the line out and it's just the hook's just gone through the cheek and mum's screaming and, they're calling the ambulance. It's a horrible situation, but it's interesting to watch.
The Pink Panther, Brenton. Let's get into it.
I'm avoiding, I'm stalling right now. I don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to have to. Nathan, what do you think about the movie?
Oh, it's a hot mess, isn't it?
It is a hot mess, which is weird because this film's pretty well known for being pretty funny and pretty great. You know what I mean?
This is revered, isn't it? This is a classic.
That's what I mean. It is an essential classic, some would say. But when I was watching it, I was just kind of meh. There's lots of other things that do what it does better. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that this film doesn't have its own identity. It does. And Peter Sellers is the main reason for that. But at the same time, Peter Sellers, who is a great comedic actor, and I think there's two things in this movie that I can really compliment. It's his performance and the way that he kind of makes he's kind of like a Rowan Atkinson in the sense that he makes the most ridiculous shit that happens, you know what I mean? Or the most clumsy physical comedy, just normal, you know what I mean? And so it is funny in that sense.
Nah.
I think him as an artist is brilliant. But
I think Peter Sellers in general is genius. I think he is so bloody talented and I love him in a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
In this one, at least in this Pink Panther movie, I was like, you're an idiot. I was just like, you're an actual genuine idiot with not a single redeemable feature. Every time he would fuck up or bumble around, I'm just like, you are a hazard. You're a literal walking hazard. You should be wrapped up in something.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, he's his character is completely, you're right, there's not much redeeming qualities.
No,
I guess
he's barely a detective. The most obvious clues are put before him and he still kind of just goes, ooh.
Also where he finds, because obviously there's points in this film that he finds things out or he discovers things, but he doesn't discover them. No. He just gets phone calls that tell him literally the facts of the situation and he's like, oh, thank God I solved that. It's you didn't do anything. Your priorities are literally not in order in this film.
Jesus. That is Inspector Clouseau. That is the character.
Exactly.
But he's not that dissimilar to Mr. Magoo. He's just fucking about and it's by pure serendipity that things work out for him.
But like I said, it's not he's the main, he's the top billing guy in this movie.
Well,
he's the main character, but
David Niven is as big of a character in this movie.
But that's what I mean. The film doesn't center around him at all.
No, it's only because in hindsight we look back at these series and go, oh, Inspector Clouseau, he's the standout character. In the same way that in Curse of the Black Pearl, Jack Sparrow isn't really the main character. It's more of Orlando Bloom's story. But
totally. Good comparison there, by the way. I was going to make the comparison in the sequel.
Took it right out of your mouth.
Well done. Much respect. I feel like we're very much on the same page this episode. The other thing I really want to compliment in this movie that is genuinely incredible, and it's not surprising that it was such a feature of Brett Breakfast at Tiffany's as well as the soundtrack. I
Oh
think
my
the
God.
orchestration and the music is just absolutely brilliant in this movie, and it elevates it. Like it is outstanding. I think it sets the scene. There's so much diversity in the musical score. Like it takes us through all the different scenes.
And so many people like would have heard this Pink Panther tune before the movie. Like and most people would only know the tune without the movie. And like it does that thing in a la like Ocean's 11 where the music so is integral to the tone of the film.
Exactly.
Like without the jazz kind of like background stuff, it was not as jovial. And yeah, I'm all for it. There are points in this movie, especially with like the music and the performance, I was going, this is what Bond should do. Like old Bond.
Bond.
Yeah. I was getting a little bit of vibes where we're in this beautiful European setting. We got this kind of cool, fun jazz music and we got this inspector kind of working out what's going on. I'm like, this is a little bit Bondy in that sense. And I'm like, Bond could get a lot of lessons from this where it could have that joviality kind of injected into it.
But yeah, I hear you. Like if you're going for like a kind of fun, rompy spy movie, that's
one of the earlier Bonds. Yeah, one of those.
Yeah,
ones.
exactly. And maybe a Bond that is in a singular location as opposed to like charting, everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like this was filmed in the same place For Your Eyes Only was filmed. This movie.
Was it?
Yeah. We haven't done For Your Eyes Only yet on the podcast, but
no.
But when we do, we'll be like, where's Clouseau? Is he running about?
We'll be opening some windows, checking the laundry service, you know what I mean? Just seeing where the hell that guy is.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, for most of the movie, I was asking him that. I was like, where is Inspector Clouseau? Why are we hanging out with these Sir Charles so much? And no, I don't mean the literal Sir Charles.
Could you imagine? But Brenton, like the Phantom himself, this movie commits a lot of crimes, Brenton, and I want to start listing a couple of them.
Oh dear, go Nathan, go. Please, take it away.
And the first one actually I want to pose as a question to you. Did you find this funny? As a comedy, were you laughing throughout this?
Look, I'll be honest.
I hope so. Up till now, it's all been fibs. I knew it.
No, look, I can probably count the amount of times I laughed audibly on one hand. And in saying that, it would probably be around the 2 mark. We wouldn't get past the 3. Like it wouldn't even be a majority of those fingers would be
and
up.
all my gags that I loved all were probably towards the end of it.
Yeah, around probably going into the third act. But then there was a point like the third act, like, there was things like I noted it that it was all funny. This is the thing. Like it didn't make me laugh, but I noted that it was humorous. Like
I think you're saying that in a very scientific way. It's like a man falls over a icicle pole. That is meant to be funny. It's like I should be laughing.
The climax of this movie, like the premise and like if you told me the joke and like the hilarity that ensues and what happens in that sequence, like I'd be like, that sounds fucking hilarious. And then I watch it and I'm like, yeah, that's funny, but it hasn't done enough to get me to love it.
And it's not like the humor's that outdated because like I feel like this does what a lot of like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels does as far as like its approach towards humor. And like whereas we loved it in Scoundrels, this one it feels just so antiquated with the way it's delivered, not the actual premise of it. Because there's definitely a lot of slapstick, and I can get around slapstick if it's done well. But for this one, it's so situational based. It's like, oh my god, this character is looking like this now, and that's meant to be the funniest shit in the world. And maybe back in the 60s it was, but like,
yeah,
and also like Inspector Clouseau just fucking about is meant to be the funniest shit on earth in this movie. But like he's just so idiotic. I was just wondering if there was a scene cut at the start where he was just dropped on his head.
I was really thinking about this. I was like, what is it about him that makes me not love him? Because like on paper, like again, it's one of those things. I look at it.
Brenton, is it because he's French? Is this your anti-French
coming out
here?
Hey, stop that, you. Stop that. I know I didn't study it in school, but stop holding it against me, okay?
He'll never eat a croissant, so listeners.
No, I look at Peter Sellers and I go, look, he's doing a fantastic job. Like, everything he's doing is right. Like, you know, like...
Yeah, it's like he's not trying. Like, he's putting it in.
He's selling the gags. He's doing what the screenplay's telling him to do, It's working. But for me, what takes me out of it a lot is that what I want in a character like Clouseau is someone that is, like, lovably just, like, always trying, like, striving to win, like, so to speak, like, striving to, like, fix the case, to solve the case. Whereas for most of this movie, he doesn't really give a shit about the case. And his primary goal isn't that. And what his primary goal is nowhere near as, let's say, interesting or lovable as what his goal should be. And that would be fine because I think that side of him as well is funny on its own, but it can't be, like, the main goal because then we get stuck like there's a sequence of this movie where we get stuck in that for like 20 minutes of just like this gag that just keeps going in this situation that keeps unfolding.
This movie is so fucking slow. Jesus, the pacing, like it's 2 hours, but Christ, I was crawling through it. And when the same gag repeats, I'm like, why? In this 2 hours, are you repeating this for so long?
I agree with you for the most part. I think I'll be a bit lighter on my criticism though, because I think it's mainly the first act. The first act doesn't grab you at all.
It's so confusing. There's like
that's
four
what I mean.
different time periods introduced. There's like way too many characters. Oh, this is what I was going to tell you off air, but now I'm going to tell you on air, Brenton. This is the first movie we have ever reviewed for the podcast where I have had to pause the movie an hour in, look at the Wikipedia synopsis so I could work out what the fuck was going on.
Nathan, I have something to reveal to you that I did the exact same thing. And it was, again, it's that whole first act. I think it's really badly paced, and it's not handling its exposition well at all. And the thing that saves it to a certain extent and, kept me intrigued, so to speak, was the soundtrack. I was like, I'm getting this vibe from it, so I think this is what.
But a soundtrack can't carry a movie.
Exactly. No, I agree. I totally agree. Once the second act hit, I was intrigued to a certain extent. I was like, is this what the movie is? And it ended up being like, that's what it was. And I was like, okay, this is entertaining enough. And then we came to the point that I was kind of referencing before, where there's a sequence in this that just goes on for too long.
Yeah, we'll talk about that particular moment in spoilers, but it's just.
And then going into the third act and back to that climax I was referencing before of going like, on paper that's really funny, and I can see that is funny. It's just not hitting home, because by that point I'm kind of like waiting for this movie to finish.
Yeah, to be honest with you, mate, if we weren't reviewing this for the podcast, I would have switched off and stayed off probably by the end of the first act.
Yeah, I agree.
I was really tempted to do that. I'm like, maybe I can just try and trick Brenton into thinking I've watched it. I was like, maybe I should just see how far this can go. But I'm like, no. I was like, no, I'm going to finish the movie. I'm going to do it for you listeners.
Do you know when you gave that thumbs up for Road Games, was it because you were actually like skipping through it? Like you weren't actually watching the movie. No. You were just like, Brenton won't know.
All 130 movies we've reviewed or whatever it is. I swear to God, I have sat through those whole films and
lovely listeners, as a visual reference, Nathan has got his hand in the air right now.
I swore to God, and I can sit through Land Before Time, but I almost couldn't sit through this, and it's like, and there's just so many things that just irk me about this movie, Brenton. You could talk about the whitewashing. You could talk about how fucking fake the diamond looks the whole movie.
We've discussed a lot of the technical issues, but the whitewashing to a point is just it's just a given at a point. You're just like, this is just so bad, but it's also really confusing because it
where are they from? It's about this princess's diamond being stolen. The movie opens with the princess's father in fucking India giving this diamond to a young Indian girl who clearly looks Indian.
That's
and
right.
He gives her this diamond, and then we meet her as an adult, and she's like a fucking Zaza Gabor kind of heiress. And I'm like, what the fuck happened here? This ain't no Michael Jackson situation. How the fuck did this happen?
That's what I mean. It took me a while to figure out that they were the same character.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's not even, look, the whitewashing, morally, it is very wrong. And we don't have to really have that conversation.
No.
All we can say is
we've done this for a bunch of old films on this show. It's just there.
What's even more insulting is that it really confuses you as to what's going on, and it makes characters look the same as well, because their makeup, styling,
there's fucking 3 other characters that look identical to Peter Sellers.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So there's a bunch of characters that you're like, that person's meant to be a different race, but they look like the same character as Peter Sellers. I was like, so what's the fuck's going on? Is he got a olive skin disguise? What is happening?
I just don't.
And then you
understand
realize, and you're like, oh, it's just bad whitewashing makeup.
It's just horrendous. And it really is. The princess's butler or whoever he is. Christ, that's the worst whitewashing.
Yeah. But again, we can have a whole discussion around whitewashing and why it's bad, but it's I just don't even know if the film deserves that. It's because at the end of the day, I know what I'm rating this.
Well, let's move on then. Let's move on. Number 2 that pissed me off, the diamond. Christ, I've seen some fake jewelry in movies before, Brenton, but for the titular Pink Panther, that must be the shittiest fake jewelry I think I've ever seen in my life. Jeez.
Mate, I was getting Dollar King vibes, you know what I mean?
Oh
when you go into a dollar store and there's the kids section where there's all the toys and and they've got fake crowns and shit and
just
some
fucking
fake...
Peter Sellers is just truffling through all of it. You're just like, what are you doing here? Have you seen Inspector Gadget 2?
I have not, unfortunately. I remember bits of it. I remember moments that there's clips there's the female Inspector Gadget and whatever, but...
Inspector Gadget 2, The main plot of that is concerning this giant fucking jewel that they're gonna like point a laser at to like freeze time in Brisbane City. That's not a joke. That's legitimately the plot of it. But the giant jewel in that B movie looks more convincing than the titular Pink Panther of this film.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, okay, I'll make another reference. So there's a certain jewel that Mr. Freeze's trying to steal in Batman and Robin, and that was more convincing.
Yeah.
That was more convincing than this Pink Panther.
Like that, at least the jewel, at least the fucking set designer could do their job, but evidently not. The one thing I will give the set designer, and the biggest compliment I think I could give this movie, is that, good lord, this makes me want to go to Europe so bad. Like, the setting of this movie is beautiful. Like, the whole film, I was just literally thumping the couch going, like, why the fuck am I not in a chalet in Europe right now? I'm like, I want to be there. I want to be there now.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, like, I noted that as well, that the production design was really good, and, you know, like, it was a beautiful landscape and whatever, but, like, it made me think. It was like, they were like, oh, let's splurge our cash and all this, and then, like, in, like, the final, like, production meeting, like, you know, before they started production the next day, you know what I mean? Like, they were on set the next day. Someone went, guys, we haven't organized the Pink Panther jewel, and they literally went to Dollar King, and we're like, well, this will have to do.
like feck. Like, Peter Sellers rocks up early, like an hour early on set, and like, hey, can you do us a favor? And they just like give him like a little $10 note, like, off you go. He's like, okay. And following on from that, like, the thing number 3, and I'll wrap it up with number 3 that pisses me off, are the characters. Because like, I don't want to spoil it, but like, this film contains adultery, okay? And like, it's done in a way where like, no one is likable. The person committing adultery is not likable. The person they're committing adultery to is not likable, and like the mistress, or whatever the male version that's called, is not likable either. It's a weird subplot in this comedy that just doesn't work.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Nathan. And because we don't like any of these characters, or we don't warm to them, I'm very conflicted as to like what the filmmakers were trying to make us feel towards them. Like, was it meant to just be a moment of hilarity? Were we meant to not like the people that were committing? Were we meant to feel for the victim in this situation, who's the person that isn't aware that the adultery is being committed, that is like thinking they are happily married or whatever? But then the ending makes you think otherwise, that maybe you were meant to like these characters and want the best. You know what I mean? I was very conflicted and very confused as to what I was meant to think.
The only character I really warmed to a little bit in this was the princess, actually. I kind of liked her. I kind of liked what she was doing. She reminds me of the main chick from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, so the one who kind of one-ups him. Like, she kind of knows what's going on. Like, I kind of respect her for that. But like, at the same time, there's just so much bullshit. And like, the younger character I didn't care for. The only thing I liked about the younger character was how he looked. Because Brenton, in the same way that Rocky 4 wanted us to buy a jacket, this movie, Brenton, makes me look at the younger male character in this movie and want to buy the combo of a blazer and turtleneck.
Nathan, I tell you what it made me think of just then as you said that, because I believe that the turtleneck was yellow, if I'm not mistaken, that he had like a mustard looking
he wears a couple
turtleneck
in the movie.
Sweater on. So imagine if you had as a new kind of fashion look, that you fashion yourself, you know, that turtleneck, right?
Yes.
That yellow turtleneck, and then you have over the top of that the jacket from Rocky 4.
Oh,
how's that for a look?
I like where you're going with it, but I think the classiness of a blazer versus a leather jacket kind of subdues the turtleneck a little bit. You know, when you got like in the 60s, like same thing with Graduate. You saw it a lot in Graduate where they had like the white turtleneck and then it'd be a blazer over the top. Fuck, it looks so cool, dude. Like, it's so fucking cool. Like, I'm gonna buy that after this review.
See, look, for me personally, like, you do you, dude. Like, you do you. I reckon.
Brenton's like, I'm gonna stick to my jacket.
But for me, I just don't know if I could go there. I don't know if I could do. I don't know if I'm turtly enough for the turtleneck club. You know what I mean?
Oh Christ! You know, bloody Master. What's that Kung Fu Panda character called?
Master Oogway.
Master Oogway. There you go. You know, bloody Master Oogway, Brenton. Can you imagine the turtle in that movie, just in like a little turtleneck and blazer, just like. Yeet.
Or like maybe like he's got the turtleneck under his shell, so like you just see the top of the noodle, like where his neck is poking out of his shell. You see the top of the turtleneck, like neckline coming up as well. Yeah, I don't know. He don't need no blazer. He's got a shell. Let's rate it.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
I'm giving it a thumbs down because look, I understand that this movie is like, you know, renowned for whatever, but for me, watching this today, like I can name a bunch of comedies off one hand that that have a similar comedic style to this, that are more consistent and more fulfilling as well to watch.
Oh yeah, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yep, that would be one of them, Nathan. You took the words from my mouth. You literally took them. Put them back.
Oh, I got them now. You can't speak anymore, listeners. I have it. yeah, Thursday night. Christ, I'm trying to imagine my friends if they watch this on a Thursday night. No, don't do it. It's funny because like I guess we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but like with the Pink Panther brand in general, I know that the sequels are better. I have heard that out of like the 5 or 6 or whatever films there were in this series, they do get better. But like I don't know, I'm just not that inspired to hang about, honestly. And like yeah, if I want to watch some old great comedies, Christ, the Python guys do this better. Anything else by Steve Martin? Actually, not anything else by Steve Martin. We'll get onto that. But like you know, there are other options. So yeah, sorry, Pink Panther.
There are other options, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Sorry, Pink Panther. But look, let's just spoil the shit out of it then. Because,
yeah, let's
like,
just
we don't care at this point.
Throw in some paprika, just spoil it.
Oh, I do like paprika.
Ooh.
You spoiled it.
What?
The movie.
Oh. All right, so let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is that fucking adultery sequence in the hotel room that just goes on for too long. That involves like a vase of flowers smashing, involves a whole bath that is taken at one point, multiple people under the bed, people out the window, people crossing into like different rooms and shit, people like, you know, getting fake phone calls and leaving and then coming back, and just fucking like sex that one person wants to have with someone, but really they want to have sex with someone else, and then there's 2 other guys in the room as well.
I feel like this was the Civil War, like airport sequence of their day. The sequence that just started and kept on going, and it's just yeah, and like you know, it got to that point because you know what, I can genuinely see.
Sorry, that was just such a stupid reference. That was so great.
Well, you know what I mean. Like you know, I could see people in the 60s genuinely getting around this and laughing their asses off because this probably would have been like funny as fuck back then. And like, oh my god, like he's an idiot and he doesn't know she's with him, and also that she might be a MILF, and it's like, oh, it's bloody Mrs. Robinson again, and like all that kind of stuff. So like I could see them in the 60s getting around this, and they're like, feck, look at this, like he's in a bath, how scandalous. But like it gets to a point where I just went from like haha to like, what the fuck is going on? I was fuming with anger when fucking Inspector Clouseau, a bloody inspector, you don't just get that title easily, looks at a fucking footprint that's wet in his own goddamn hotel room, and he's like, wait a minute, what is all this? And like his wife's like, nah, let's just have sex, eh? And he's like, no, there's something wrong here. And then he just like looks at her, and she looks as though she's just been like slapped in the face because she's so fucking nervous about all this. And he's like, screw it, flicks off the light switch, jumps onto bed, and as he's about to fuck her, a champagne cork goes off in the bed. They get covered in booze, and he still doesn't fucking twitch to the situation. What is going on?
He doesn't figure out anything. Like, he literally figures out nothing in this movie.
Oh.
Like, it just kind of all happens around him, and he gets phone calls, which is fine. I like that. I really like that. That, like, I like characters like that are just kind of there along for the ride. But, like, they still have to offer something.
As the audience, we're the ones that are meant to be there along the ride, mate. Not him.
Exactly. But again, he's the main character, and he's providing most of the laughs. And on top of that, like, what does he call his wife? Like, you can take a drink every time he calls her. What does he call her? Is it my darling or is it my angel?
Oh,
or
yeah,
something
like that.
Oh my god.
Oh.
I was so over it by the end of it. I was just like, this sequence has gone on for too long, and they've just been fucking calling each other the same name. And then like after the champagne, like they clean it all up, and then he goes back to go to bed again. Like it just keeps going. It never ends. It's the never-ending sequence, Nathan.
He just angers me every time he's with his wife. Why the fuck does he whip out a violin in bed? Like, is that shit funny?
Oh, that was funny. I thought that was funny. No, but like that wasn't the funniest violin gag. That was funny, like when he whipped it out and was just kind of like in bed and the lights turned on and he had the violin. Like I was like, all right, that's pretty funny. Again, like I didn't laugh out loud, but I noted I was like, that's funny. But the bit that did make me laugh was when this is actually funny.
It's like the surprise is just coming to Brenton now.
He set the violin away, right, to get fixed. And, you know, during this whole adultery sequence, this is the one time I laughed during it. He comes back and he goes, let me test to see if it's still good. And he plays this fucking song that it's just like the worst, like, playing of a violin like you will ever hear in your life.
You can tell Peter Sellers has never held an instrument in his life.
Oh, dude, that's why it's funny, though. I laughed my ass off, and he's really impressed with it. He's like, it's very good.
And his wife's just sitting there taking it, just like slowly nodding.
I think it was funny as well because it was kind of like the actor knew it was funny as well. Like the actor was in on the joke, was just like, I can't play violin for shit, but that sounds good.
Because you know, you and me, we both play string instruments. And just watching that, I'm just like, oh, he would get booted out of a room in 2 seconds if he did that in front of an orchestra. Like, oh, it's just... It was just unbearable, Brenton. I just couldn't do that.
What do you think our old orchestra coordinator, Mr. B, would think of that
Christ.
violin
If our high
playing?
school teacher who taught us the strings, if he saw this man holding this fucking instrument, he would just scratch, he'd just put his hand on his head and just shake it and just be like, what are you doing, mate? Like, he has no skills. I was hoping the one time he'd actually whip out the violin was when he'd do what we saw in Tomorrow Never Dies, when Bond like rides the cello down the mountain. I was kind of hoping Inspector Clouseau would do a similar thing. No, The Living Daylights, that's what it was.
Yeah, but in The Living Daylights, because like this past week, like I've been like having conversations with various people in my life, and that scene has come up like 3 times.
Really? From The Living Daylights? As in you brought it up or they have?
I brought it up once, but everyone says the same quote of like they go past the the immigration kind of desk thing, and they're like, "We have nothing to declare, only the cello."
It would have been great if you knew that gag as a kid, because at the end of each rehearsal, you could have just like said that to your mum as she picks you up, like, "Oh, we got the cello to declare." Like, oh,
totally. That's a whole like, because I hadn't seen Living Daylights before we did orchestra together in high school. Like, there's all the cellists missed out on like a vintage joke right there to just like say every time they came in, or like when we had to tour or get on the bus or whatever to go to the Estedford or whatever we had to do. You know what I mean? Missed opportunities all around. But thanks to Classic Movie Banter, if you watch that episode,
if you're a young cello player, get in touch.
Mate, get in touch, get inspired, start whipping that cello out and make it cracking that joke.
Oh.
I guarantee someone will like it.
Brenton, why is there a full music video in the middle of this movie?
Why not, as they say?
It's just, it comes out of nowhere. It literally comes out of nowhere. It goes for like a full 3 minutes and it does nothing for the movie. It's just this random chick just like having a party. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, man. And everyone's just kind of there. Hanging out. Like, there's a lot
It's a
of
good
scenes like that
tune.
in this movie. Like the climax, the party at the end. Like, everyone's just kind of there, and it's okay. It's like Clouseau's wife's there at the end, and I'm like, why is she there?
What the fuck is the theme of that final party? Like, what is the theme? You have every costume known to man. I think the costume department literally just like emptied out their wardrobe and just said to all the extras, pick one. And they just went wild.
Mate, the moment in that scene that is still the most confusing to me, and then it came back for another gag later on, was the zebra that was like drinking out of the fucking trough behind them as they were trying to have a conversation.
Oh my God. That almost stole the movie.
Look, there was so many things that almost stole that movie.
Oh, a beautiful movie for stills. I'll give it that.
Absolutely.
How does it work? How does the zebra actually drink out of the punch?
I have no idea. But later on, we find out that it's a 2-person zebra. You know what I mean? So the 2 crooks are trying to get away in their gorilla suits in the cars, and then you just see the zebra chasing them down the hill as like this onlooker's like, what the fuck's going on?
Oh my God.
And there's 2 people in it. So what was the other guy going? Do you reckon like there's like a straw system in that zebra head?
Oh yeah, the guy got the short straw for being the ass. So
The guy that's the ass like has like a little pipe that goes up to the mouth, and he's like, "Oi, can you get me a drink?" And it's like, "I'll just stick my head in this one. Start sucking."
Christ. Because also the guy who was the ass, like he probably couldn't see anything. So like he has no context to this. So as he's like just in the back of all it, this shit's going on. Like, by the way, that chase scene where all the cars are going around the roundabout with that old fucker just watching went for way too long. Like way too long.
Again, that was a vintage moment that I could literally say was one of those moments that I referenced before, of being like, I understand that this is funny. You know, like I'm watching this and I'm
I could be laughing to this.
but it's not getting me because the timing isn't right. Like it just goes on that bit too long. Though I did chuckle to myself when that fucking 2-person zebra, I want to say giraffe. Get your animals right, Brenton. Zebra ran down the hill. Because like really, like if you're undercover as an agent or, you know, an inspector or whatever the fuck you are, you know, and you've chosen to go to a party with your partner as a fucking zebra and you're the ass. Like, you know, and they're like, "Oh man, like they've gotten the cars, they're getting away." Do you then continue to run like in your zebra outfit? Like,
oh my God.
like as a couple of agents, like one behind the other, like down the hill?
We know why. It's stuff for purely comedic reasons. Like that's the only reason. Like this movie is completely illogical. And it really is illogical. You know what was the biggest gap in logic for me, Brenton? There was a line in this movie where the nephew discovers that his dad's the Phantom, right? And like, so Charles is saying like, fuck, like, and he says the line, "George has found a do-it-yourself Phantom kit." That's the line. So that makes me think, is the Phantom, who's like this big jewel thief, did he just like fucking like order this kit online as like a do-it-yourself kind of Phantom thing and then just kind of like went about just like robbing all these places.
Okay, here's an interesting idea for like if we were not that we would at the moment, but if we were to add this film into like the classic movie Banter cinematic universe.
Oh, the Babe cinematic universe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you think that like the Phantom is actually like an alias that like a bunch of just like petty thieves like buy the go-to like how to package from online and there's multiple Phantoms?
Oh, I'd get around that. Well, there probably are. That's the thing. Because, by the way, I don't believe for a second David Niven is like this expert jewel thief. And we actually watch him trying to rob the place. He's probably one of the shittiest jewel thieves I think I've ever seen in cinema.
Absolutely.
He's just walking about in plain daylight in the middle of a hall. Like, what are you doing?
His mask is pretty funny though.
Oh my God.
His initial mask, like his little black robbery, like, you know, burglar mask is just like ridiculous. And then finally he dons another outfit when he finally dons the gorilla outfit as well. And you have the two gorillas that are like, again, it's a kind of a funny thing, but like again, like the gag's gone on too long before that and it keeps going on too long after it. We get it. They're gorillas and they're robbing bank.
It's just not funny. None of this is funny. I did laugh a little bit when his minion like takes the car and like crashes it into the snow and like, you know, they got the dog and you know the guy skis past and grabs the dog, gives it to the princess, all that kind of stuff. But I like the idea that after that scene where the dog is given back to the princess and the henchman, he runs off on a sleigh. He grabs the sleigh with like the reindeer or whatever that are tugging it and kind of just like goes off into the forest. I'm like, what are you doing? Like that is the easiest thing to track down and find. And they're not moving that fast as well.
Yeah, look, you're right. Like Nathan, what I love about having you on this show as a co-host is that you pick up these things, you know what I mean? You pick up like the little moments that like, you know, I note at the time because I remember having the same thought and then like just like throwing it out like because like your brain can only contain so much information.
You know the reason why I bring this shit up?
Why, Nathan?
It's because you and I have both been on film sets and we know that a little moment like that we watch in the film that would have gone for a couple of seconds is a day's work. So we know that there are people who are spending days on this little gap in logic and no one's batting an eye and saying to the director, oh, wait a minute, or if you really think about it, this shit isn't working. It's like, you know what I mean?
Well, think of it this way. Maybe this film was such a mess, potentially, that the finished product we got had already had like a bunch of problems emitted from it, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, like I'm looking at this director and I don't necessarily blame him because I look at his other works. I look at Breakfast at Tiffany's, which apart from the, oh gosh, there's a theme of whitewashing here, but apart from the Mickey Rooney content, like we really enjoy that film and we think it's, you know what I mean? Like it. If we omitted that whole character from that movie, like it'd be great.
Yeah.
You watch something, and that movie's well paced. It's got a great climax.
Yeah, it's all good. But also that movie was written by Truman Capote. So like there's a difference. I think it is in the screenplay. You get to balance it. Like, yeah, I don't know. The only other small thing that I want to bring up with you, Brenton, and this is actually nothing really to do with the movie. This is something I want to ask you. In this movie, there is a lot of characters kissing the hands of other characters, right? And we've seen this a lot in old cinema, right? Where someone of authority holds out their hand and they get a little smooch on it. What? You know it.
Oh, I do know that. I do it all the time.
You do, and I have to keep pulling my hand back, Brenton.
Yeah. Just bring it here.
No. Ugh, cuties. Ugh.
Just act normal. It's fine.
Ugh, I'd have to wash my hands. Ugh. But here's the thing. Like, this is the movie where it cracked for me because I genuinely don't think, okay, if I was someone important, right? Not that I ever will be. If I had my hand fucking kissed like that all the time, I think I would hate it. Like, imagine if you're a person of royalty. Would you actually get around people doing that to your hand rather than shaking that? Like, actually giving it a little wet kiss?
Oh, gosh. When you say wet kiss, it just doesn't sound right. Nathan, I'm not sure. If I'd been raised in that community, like perhaps I'd think on it differently and see it as normal. Here's my question to you, Nathan. Like, I mean, like if people started kissing my hand, I think it's pretty weird. But my question to you is, would you enjoy kissing the hands or would you rather take the kisses?
Neither. I reckon they're both a bad bucket, mate. Like, I don't want any of that shit. Like, I don't want to be blood and spreading disease and shit. Who knows where their hands been? And you're fucking pecking it. It's the worst you can do.
Gun to your head now, and this dude is just like, you know, he's got the gorilla suit on and he's saying, Nathan, there's a hand there. You can either kiss it and there's a set of lips next to it, or you can take a kiss on the hand. And you have to choose one. Which do you choose?
I'd rather take her because then I can just wash my hands after. But like, you know, the princess isn't even wearing gloves. She's just taking the shit bare. And I'm like, Christ, it's amazing they're not all sick right now.
Nathan, thank you for being sanitary. And for, you know, keeping your distance, and you know, you were the MVP of social distancing earlier in the year. So thank you for looking after us all and keeping us safe.
This is a year of cleanliness, Brenton. I'm just trying to keep the hopes up.
I, as we've both discussed, enjoy kissing kissing the hands. So I don't really see what the issue is. But it is. I get your point. It is a weird thing. Like, it is a weird thing to kiss someone's hands, but it's like, it's weird as well because, like, monarchs back in the day, people would, like, there's the classic.
Yeah, I get what it meant back then. I'm just saying, like.
No, I'm saying, like, kissing of the feet as well. Like, people, like, going, oh bless you, sir, on the feet, which is just, like, a whole other kettle.
Now you give me bloody Last Temptation of Christ vibes. I don't want that.
So, Nathan, about that, do you mind if you just give me a little kiss on the
No, Brenton, you let go of my shoe. You let go.
I can't even say that joke with a straight face. Let's get to the next segment.
Special segments.
Special segment.
Ooh, so special. All right, Brenton, serious question. Is this movie worth a remake?
Now we can have this conversation. Jesus Christ.
We haven't mentioned the Steve Martin stuff.
This movie was remade.
Yeah.
There's the Steve Martin ones, which I've seen scenes from, and I remember seeing them as a little.
Watched it.
I haven't watched the full film. Like, I've only seen, like, a few scenes. I've seen that
There's two of them, by the way.
Yeah. I've seen the hamburger scene, as we referenced at the start.
That's the only thing I remember. I've seen both, and the only thing I remember is that hamburger.
Right, you've sat down and watched both.
You make it sound like I returned from Antarctica. Like, wow, you've been there. Like, I have. I sat through both of them.
What was it like?
So many fake accents.
But in all seriousness, like, I remember watching that as a little kid and being like, oh, that's funny man, Steve Martin. I love Steve Martin. Ha ha ha.
You sound like such a fucking mobster boss just then. Ha! It's funny man Steve Martin. Thinks he's a big funny man, he does.
Nathan,
you're just poking him with a stick.
Watching those scenes later in life, I realized that there's not very good, as they say.
But like, here's the thing, like, in saying is this movie worth a remake, do you reckon can you make something really excellent these days with this property? Like,
absolutely. If we were to cast it, like, right now, like, on it, like, you could cast so many people as the inspector.
Get someone actually French to do it.
Yeah, well, that.
Marion Cotillard, swap the gender.
Hey, I'd be up for that.
Be great. She just bursts into Le'Veon Rose.
I watched Marion Cotillard's, like, cameo in Anchorman 2.
Oh, she's great in Anchorman 2, because isn't she like the French Canadian reporter?
Yeah, but like, I didn't think she was that funny. Like, she was next to Jim Carrey.
Yeah, you're not gonna be that funny next to Jim Carrey. Like,
that's what I mean. Like, I was like, whoever made that call, that was a bad call.
But I'm glad she's there. Like,
But I appreciate she's there. So maybe if she had, like, a titular role to herself, she had her own film, it was all based around her, it could work, Nathan.
You know what? Actually, I just want to see French cinema make this. There are so many funny French actresses out there in French cinema. Just give it to the French. True. Just make it in French. Get them to do it. Like,
Give it back to the French.
Who is it? Get Luc Besson on top of it. He's French.
I can't do a French accent for shit. I'm really bad. That's why I always get you to do them. Like,
yeah, well, also I learned French over like 10 years. So like, it took a long time.
Whoa, Nathan, I said I was asking you to do the accent. I wasn't asking you to toot your fucking horn. Jesus, just calm down.
I'll toot it in French for you. Le toot.
Oui.
Maybe we should get Brenton to do it, listeners.
The extent of my French accent is just like doing the French taunting scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh.
And that is fun in itself.
It's a good time. Yeah, I guess it could be done correctly. What about a musical, Brenton? Should this movie be a musical?
Oh, dude, if I was going to remake it, I'd make it a musical. I'd love to see this, like, Broadway would snap this shit up. You know what I mean? Like, you know what? It'd work as a musical, but I could even see it working as like a stage play, if that makes sense.
Oh.
There's stage adaptations of like these old comedies that are that tour around the world. Like you see something like The Play That Goes Wrong.
I love that. I've seen that. I was literally just thinking
I think something like that, but doing it like Pink Panther style could be fucking really cool. You know what I mean?
Did I ever tell you when I saw The Play That Goes Wrong in London? That's when I met Richard Hammond.
No, you haven't. Tell that story, Nathan.
Oh, it's not much of a story. I was like seeing the play in London. It's like 2015, and it was like right after Top Gear got shut down. Because Jeremy Clarkson was like,
right,
like, fuck you, I'm going to punch the producer. So they're like, maybe let's not continue this relationship. So it was like right after that, but they hadn't announced the grand tour yet. No one really knew what was going on. And so I was in London seeing this play. I can't remember what theater. I think it was like the Princess or the Palace or something like that. And like, I was in the line for a bar, and there he was. And he was just there with his wife. And like, people in front of the line were trying to take like sneaky photos of him, but like they weren't really getting the right angle. So like, I'm like, who are they? What are they doing? So I went up to him, tapped the shoulder. I'm like, hello. And he turned, he's like, hello. I'm like, oh. And I recognized him. I'm like, I really love Top Gear. And he's like, cheers. And there was like an awkward pause because I didn't expect to actually have a conversation with him.
Yeah, right.
So he's just kind of standing there.
And then did you just leave?
Oh, no, his wife suddenly went to the bathroom. So it was even more awkward for him because he now was just proper alone. So I'm like, fuck, I could start this conversation.
Yeah.
And I love Top Gear, but I don't follow it religiously. So I couldn't really ask him any deep cut questions. I was like, so how's it all going with the new show? And he's like, we're trying to, do something besides Top Gear. We're trying to get the boys back. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, is it going to be as good as Top Gear? And he's like, I really hope it is, because if it's not, then we're going to be fucked. And I'm like, and he said that verbatim, by the way. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, and then like there's another awkward pause. And then I'm like, can I get a photo? And he's like, yeah, we can get a photo. And I'm like, thank you so much. And like, it was just so weird. It's just that thing where you just, celebrities, man.
That's an awesome story. He seems like a cool dude. I'd like to have a chat with that guy. It better work, otherwise we're fucked.
Yeah.
That's
show business for you.
You did tap him on the shoulder, Nathan.
I did tap him on the shoulder.
But that's okay. Like, good on him for turning around and giving you the time of day.
It was nice that he did that, but we did see that night the play that goes wrong. And I'm like, and it's very slapstick. It's a great play. So like, I could definitely see them do something with Pink Panther with that.
That's what I'm thinking when I'm thinking like stage adaptation as like a play or something. Do it something like that. I think it'd be really cool. Like that whole sequence, like I know we said it was really like laborious in this movie, but like if you updated that sequence in the middle a bit with like the whole adultery thing or whatever, and like added some more physical comedy into it, like, added some more stakes to it as well, it could be really good.
It could work. And I want to bring back a fan favorite segment we have on this show, Brenton. The listeners love it. I'm bringing back Battle Royale. This is a segment we've done in previous episodes. We've had like the It kids versus the Goonies kids. We've had all these different combos. In this Battle Royale, Brenton, I want to have the Pink Panther versus the Black Panther. And I want you to tell me how this fight would go.
Okay, so look, the obvious answer is that the Black Panther would win easily, like hands down in like 2 seconds. But I kind of want to look into this a bit more.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if Inspector Clouseau just like kept fucking about like so much, it would like undermine T'Challa so much that it would just be like kind of insulting that, that it would just take him back and distract him enough that like Clouseau could like get away scot-free, if that makes sense. I don't know if it'd necessarily be an interesting battle. It'd just be more like Clouseau like fucking like falling over something.
Well, that's the thing. I think it has to be location based. I think if Clouseau was like walking around the Wakandan castle, like where the royalty family was, and he was just like fidgeting with all the things they have there, I reckon he'd eventually like stumble into like Shuri's lab, press a button, and then just kill them all.
Right. Okay. I like your version better. I think that makes more sense. My version, there's no actual battle. Like it's just kind of like someone does dumb shit and everyone goes, guys, let's get out of here.
But here's the thing.
Dickhead.
That's Inspector Clouseau. What if we actually got the titular Pink Panther, like the animated Pink Panther? We make it live action, like an actual panther. And we had that fight the Black Panther.
Well, I think the Pink Panther would win because like the Pink Panther can bring things in and out of existence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He grabs a bucket of paint at one point, like he's
exactly. So he could just like wipe the Black Panther just like out. Like, just like erase him.
It's like bloody Forrest Whitaker's just on the side. He's like, who would fight for the mantle of the Black Panther? And then just like the fucking like Pink Panther rocks up just like.
And like the other thing as well about that Pink Panther is that in like the ending of this movie, it gets run over by a car and it just gets up. It's like, oh yeah, whatever.
Oh, we never mentioned that. I'm so sorry, Brenton. We completely forgot to mention this in the spoilers. Is how this film ends with Inspector Clouseau being framed.
We kind of referenced it like in the non-spoilers, how I said that the end of the movie makes you think like, oh, well, if we were meant to care about these other characters that we just couldn't give a flying fuck about personally, and like you kind of didn't like them as well.
Well, that's the thing. This is one of the very, very rare movies where the bad guys genuinely win. And that's it.
Yeah, at first I was like, no, like absolutely not. Like that's a terrible ending. And then I was like, oh, like it's kind of funny, like the funny gag that he kind of, again, like the character's such a fucking dickhead that he's like, oh yeah, it was very hard that, I did all these fucking...
I was the only one that's the party.
But again, like does no one in this jury or in this like, or like any of the lawyers or attorneys or whatever just like go, oh, well that jewel was obviously fucking placed on him, like, you know what I mean? Like he's been set up. Like no one brings the fucking Pink Panther to like the court of law where the case is going down, you know what I mean? Like it just makes no sense. That's why I was like, oh well, that's cheap.
Brenton, were you just waiting for like bloody Atticus Finch to just rock up to the court and just like slam down his little briefcase,
be like, do your duty?
And Clouseau is just so confused, and as he's like escorted out of court, everyone else just stands up like they do in Mockingbird.
Yeah, totally.
And it's so stupid as well because he actually loves that he's the Phantom. At the end, it completely undermines his arc because he's been given all these flowers, and he's like, actually, yeah, fuck it. Oh.
I thought it was a bit underwhelming as an ending. I was just like, I felt like I was done dirty. But see what's not done dirty usually on this show. It's what stills this movie.
Ooh, it's blinding.
There's a still, links below. You know the gig. All right, this picture. There's a scene in the
What a
movie.
description, Nathan, of this segment of the show.
If you're new to the show, you'll get it. Right, we take a picture of a movie. Anyway, so like, there's a scene where the princess is like, flirting with Charles, and she's lying on this tiger skin, Brenton. And oh boy, how would you describe the tiger's expression as it's dead?
If I could make a sound effect that would sum it up, it'd be like this.
It's like the worst taxidermy I think I've ever seen in my life.
It looks like it's meant to it looks like it's meant to be in like the chorus line in some show, you know what I mean, doing the kicks. It's got a cheesy grin, and it's weird as well because she's like cupping its like mouth. Strangely, and its eyes just look absolutely insane.
It looks as though it's been like electrically shocked.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so funny as well because she's like laying on it as like there's this like really sexual tension scene, but it ends with her being wrapped in the tiger as she's dragged out of the room.
Yeah, it's like its facial expression is literally the most distracting thing ever. Like she's actually like having a moment in the movie, and like again, we like this character, we like the actress, we like what she's doing with the part, and then there's just that face underneath her face that like your eye is just constantly like going down, going like what? And then there's another still later on, which is the one I thought you'd choose if you were going to choose. Like there's a moment later on when like Charles comes in on that as well, and he's kind of like close to the tiger as well, and it's the three of them in the shot. This tiger gets a lot of screen time in the movie.
It really does. They're like, fuck, we need a panther in this. Tigers are pretty close to it. I guess we'll throw it in.
Exactly. Big cat. Joe Exotic would have a field day.
Oh,
Nathan, let's look at this film's poster.
Blanton.
Yes,
Let's look at this film's poster.
but is it art?
Despite our criticisms for this movie, Brenton, this is a pretty badass poster.
Oh, it's pretty good. But again, like initially when I looked at it, I was like, wow, like these two dudes with the mustache look the same. You know what I mean?
Don't they though? Especially in this poster, yeah.
Going back to the still discussion though, I love that the tiger made it to the poster. Like I just love
Oh my god.
that.
Yeah.
Like, that never happens on this show. That's something that we pick in the stills, like is in the poster. I like that the violin's in it. I like that he's in bed with his inspector jacket on. I like that the champagne's going off. I like that the George, I think it is, the young nephew is getting skis and his ski poles. And then what's his face? Charles is just fucking about under the bed, which he does a lot. So
There's a lot of characters that go under that bed during the movie.
it's a good piece of art. It's a good drawing. So I think it's...
It reminds me a little bit of like the Mad magazine cartoons you get back in the day.
Yeah, totally. Bit all over the place like this movie. So yeah, I'm down for this.
Yeah, I approve of the poster. I don't think there's much I'd change about it, frankly. Like,
The only thing I'd change about it is that like the slogan I think is a bit in terms of marketing, it's doing the low blow. It says you only live once, so see the Pink Panther twice. Don't tell me what I have to see twice movie poster.
Yeah, the audacity to be like, you know what? Buy 2 tickets to this movie, bitch. Like, wow.
Well, I'll fucking do what I want. Thank you very much.
Imagine if Marvel put that on their posters, It's like, you know what? See Avengers 4 times. Go on, you nerds. Like, it wouldn't fly, would it?
Yeah, but the thing is about Kevin Feige, he knows he doesn't have to put that shit on his posters because he knows people are going to go see that movie like 6 times.
He tries every movie, but the same marketing guy's like, no, Kevin, we've told you before. Like, we're not doing it for this one.
Kevin! Stop it.
He's like, guys, I just want to edit the posters. Like,
we're not panthering it, Kevin. Stop it.
But I made a Panther movie. Kevin, get back in the box. You know what?
Kevin.
I like to think that Kevin Feige actually isn't running Marvel. He's just some like guy they've got in a cage that they only bring out for public events. Just like, and he's like the Ben Kingsley figure of Iron Man 3. He's just like taking the role,
I was about to say the same thing. I was going to say like the way they came up with the Mandarin concept for Iron Man 3 was that they were like, well,
let's just use Kevin.
Do like the Kevin Feige story. Like,
that'd be great. Just like Kevin's on set and he's like muttering like, I am the Mandarin. Like, we know Kevin. Like,
Nathan, title talk.
Ooh, it's the title.
Is the Pink Panther in the Pink Panther? Like, yes, the jewel is in there. And like the animated animal kind of is, so like, I guess we can give the movie props for that. But like, I don't know, were you kind of hoping for an actual Pink Panther?
Look, we did get the actual Pink Panther though, like the animated one. So I'm fine with the title. It's more, it raises questions because you said that there's a plethora of sequels to this movie.
Return of the Pink Panther, Trial of the Pink Panther, like all those ones.
Is the Pink Panther in like fucking all the titles?
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the thing, because the jewel's stolen by the end of the movie. So is that just like the MacGuffin for all these films?
God, like it's such a boring MacGuffin then if this fucking jewel just keeps coming back. But maybe that's the hilarity of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It does raise questions about the titles for the next films. if we ever review those.
We will never review them, Brendan. I'm saying it now. I'm calling it now.
Whoa, you're putting your foot down.
Right.
Nathan.
I'm stomping on that, Jill, and I'm giving that power to the people.
Pass it here.
What?
The power to the people.
Power to the people. I'm looking at the critics' consensus on the tomato meter, and it's got a critical consensus of 88%. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
With an audience score of 78%.
People love this, Brenton. And it made money. Hence why I got all these sequels and made 10 mil back in the day.
Damn. Dennis Schwartz from Oz's World Movie Reviews, love you Dennis and your reviews, gave it a rotten review and said, I found it overrated, which is kind of the sentiment we've been expressing over this episode. Wouldn't you agree?
It is pretty overrated. Like, I don't know. I don't know which Pink Panther movie you watched. Probably one of the sequels that we haven't touched. Like, I don't know. Dive in there. See if it's good.
And nor that we will touch them because Nathan's put his foot down.
John J. Puccio from Movie Metropolis. He did like it, Brenton. He wrote, Clouseau is a character that must go down as one of the great comic creations in motion picture history.
I don't see it.
Brenton's like squinting like, I don't know. It's just a shame with this kind of comedy. Like, it really does feel antiquated in a day.
Adam K gave it 4 stars and said it dragged at times, and I do think it was a good choice to focus more on Clouseau later on. But when it was funny, it was extremely funny. I don't know if it ever did actually focus on Clouseau later on. Are you saying that like when he puts in plan how he's going to catch the Phantom in the third act? Maybe I don't know. But getting back to the point of when it was funny, it was extremely funny. I wouldn't say this movie is extremely funny.
I'm trying to think, like, would you reckon kids would be laughing a lot at this?
No. They wouldn't get it. It's all about adultery, dude.
Yeah, I know. And like, it's just such a weird portrayal of it as well. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think if you're going to give kids this, watch Steve Martin's.
Yeah, probably. I mean, like, I can vouch for my fucking 7-year-old self being like, oh, Steve.
There we go.
That's all I have to say about that, really, Nathan.
Anonymous gave it 2.5 stars, Brenton, and wrote, only saw clips off YouTube. Pretty funny.
Yeah, that's how I'd recommend watching this, actually. I'd look up like a best hits montage of Clouseau. Yeah, like from the first film, for sure. I reckon do it. Why not?
Yeah, probably the best way you can do it.
Matthew H gave it 2 stars and said, it's sad how the remake of the Pink Panther is funnier than the original. Whoa,
Ooh.
Shots fired, Matthew H. This film has not aged well, and now it seems slow, dull, and boring. There is little humor to be had here. Yeah, well, now it makes me want to go back and watch the remake again.
Yeah.
And see.
Maybe it's not as bad as we remember. I remember the second one being god-awful, but maybe the first one does have some redeeming qualities compared to this.
I hope so.
Jim P. wrote on YouTube, I wish people still made the effort to dress nicely. And you know what, Brenton? He raises a good point. I kind of like this aesthetic.
Yeah, this movie has inspired you, Nathan, to get back into turtlenecks.
Mate,
so
you watch Turtleneck and Blazer. I'm going to bloody rock it.
Mate, the photo shoot next year, Nathan's going to be rocking that shit, you know?
Oh, Christ.
I'm going to be standing there in a regular shirt, and Nathan's going to be like, what are you going on?
It'll be like you pointing at me with like a raised eyebrow while I'm like, hey, I'm in the turtleneck.
Ruby Tuesday Gypsy, interesting name, says, the man trying to cross the street reminds me of my grandpa. Well, that's nice for you, Ruby Tuesday Gypsy.
But probably watch out for your grandpa if he's crossing a street like that.
Well, yeah, I wonder if that grandpa ever ran into someone that was in two people that were in a zebra costume, just like chasing some burglars.
If my grandpa walked in the house and told that story, he'd be like, oh, someone's not taking their pills. Like, you just wouldn't believe it, would you?
Exactly. Well, Nathan, that was the Pink Panther. We did it. We got through it.
The Pink Panther. Who will accept the challenge of watching the Pink Panther?
I will. Lovely listeners, thank you so much for tuning in once again to Classic Movie Banter. If you want more of this, check us out on our social media platforms.
We got 'em.
Which include our Instagram, our YouTube channel, our email, and our Twitter.
He's like a kid who's like trying to showing off his like trading cards, and he's like, "Oh, I've got email."
Exactly. But seriously, like, tell us what you thought of the Pink Panther. I think our opinion's pretty divisive, so tell us if we're wrong, which we probably are most of the time. So tell us if we're idiots or if you agree with us, and more importantly, let us know what film we should review next time on the show. If you really want to help us out, you could give us a review on the iTunes app. That would just be so good, really. It'd be so good. It'd be like getting a real Pink Panther jewel, Nathan. That's what a 5-star review
The
would.
real Pink Panther jewel of this podcast is our listeners, obviously. All of them are jewels in our eyes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But until next week, Nathan, time to go get that Royale with cheese we were going to go get.
Oh, mate. Fuck, I would actually kill for a cheeseburger right now. Let's just go. I'm keen for a Macca's run.
Let's do it.
Woo!
Drive through all the way. Let's go.
Get in the feed. Yeah, boy.
A bugger.